outlets, plugs, Cat 5, Cat 6, in-wall vacuum cleaners, Christmas lights, up lights, down lights. Where do we put plugs? Where do we put paneling? Should we put surround sound? Should we not do it? It's a lot of questions. It's a lot. So what I want to do today is I want to give you some information. If you're thinking you're getting ready to build a home, you're working through it from the ground up, one of the things that you're going to have to do at some point is do an electrical meeting with the builder or the company that the builder uses to do your electrical outlets, right? And so this is going to cover like, hey, where are we putting outlets in your home? Where are we putting lighting? Where are we putting network cabling? All of those things. And if you don't know what you're walking into, you might feel like you're really, really overwhelmed. So I want to give you some tips. I want to give you some tricks, share some information that I try and share with my clients as we get ready to do this. If we haven't met before, my name is Zach. My team and I, we sell new construction real estate here in DFW. We help people just like you buy from a builder's inventory and buy brand new homes and build homes from the ground up and everything in between, right? So today I want to talk you through like, hey, when you get ready to do your electrical meeting, here's some things that you should consider as you get ready to do this. So every builder does this a little bit differently. Some of them, you do this over a Zoom meeting. Some of them you do it in their office. Some of them send you to another company and they talk you through all these different things. And so what this is like, obviously your home is going to come standard with, lighting and network and plugs and things like that. So this is more about the upgrades that you do in this space and where you add those things. So I want to kind of talk you through a couple different spaces on this. So I've got some high voltage, some low voltage, some things that I would say probably wait on until after you close, and then a couple other things that might just be fun to have along the way. So number one on mine is my electrical considerations. And so this is kind of thinking through where do you want plugs in your house? Are you going to hang Christmas lights in your, like that, and you're gonna be Clark Griswold and make it light up and be super pretty and look wonderful? And if you don't want to have to like deal with extension cords and plugging things in and cords hanging down and breakers getting flipped and going back down into your basement and Clark Griswold, you might want to make sure that you have plugs in the like eaves and soffits of your home so that you can plug those in, right? So that's a place that I would consider, if we're working around the outside of the house, if you think, hey, we want, lighting, or we want to be able to plug in stuff in the flower bed or anything on the front of the exterior, some extra plugs would probably be a really good thing to have. If we're working our way around the back side of your house, if you have a large patio, and I know a lot of people like to put TVs on the walls or TVs, hanging up top in the patio, you're going to need to make sure you have power to do that. So think about, putting an extra GFCI protected plug out there. So we talked about the Christmas lights. That kind of works us around the outside as we're working in toward the home. Let's talk about your garage. So this is places where maybe you have an electric vehicle and you're like, hey, we need to make sure we have a 220 plug. So put the 220 plug in your garage. Or you don't have an electric vehicle and you're like, hey, we might get one someday. You might want to consider putting one in now. I will tell you kind of on this one though, this gets a little bit pricey if you don't already, like if you don't have an electric vehicle and you're thinking, hey, we might get one in the next 3 to 5 years, this might be one of those places that I would consider waiting on because it can add up really quickly. It's not just the plug, it's making sure you have all the correct, like amps and voltage and all that stuff coming into the house, and they can manage the load on that. So if it can be pricey to add those 220 plugs. Now adding additional like just regular outlets is not that pricey. So the 221, like I said, if you need it, add it now. Not, you might consider waiting. While we're in the garage, I also like to always talk about like, hey, if you think you want a dedicated circuit for a freezer or a refrigerator or a deep freezer, drink fridge, anything like that, if you probably want to put a dedicated outlet circuit in the garage. Or if you're thinking, hey, we want to have places for tools and things as you're working in your garage, you can never have enough plugs out there. So I always say, hey, make sure you put as many as you can. Put your plugs in the garage. Also, you can probably potentially ask for wiring for a whole home generator. You don't necessarily need to do the generator itself with the builder, but you can do the wiring to be ready for the generator. Another one I had someone do recently is they made sure that they're thinking about putting in a mini split in their garage so they can air condition. They're actually insulating the garage and then putting an air conditioning unit out there because they like to work on their cars. I was like, that's freaking brilliant. So they made sure they added an additional plug on an exterior wall. They know exactly where the unit's going to go so that they plan for that plug to be out there. As we work our way into your home, things to think about in terms of Like plugs are always like, hey, think about your living room and adding a floor plug. You know, a lot of people nowadays have those, like the couches that plug in and they lean back a little bit. Lean back. Sorry. It's been a long day. Lean back on the couch. You need to have plugs so that you don't have to have them up against the wall, because, you know, when your furniture is not against the wall, you feel a little bit extra bougie. Or you want to, you know, plug your lamps in, or phone chargers. That's a big one. So floor plug, I would consider doing that. That's going to be hard to do after the fact because they usually drill and jack that into your foundation. So if you want one of those, it needs to be planned ahead of time with the builder. So floor plugs, think through you know, a lot of people nowadays either have like the Roomba or the robot vacuum that rolls around the house. If you're going to put that in a laundry room, or you're going to put that in a closet or a pantry, so you want to make sure you have a plug to power that. Or like in our case, we have a stick vacuum that hangs on the wall. So we wanted a plug in our laundry room to make sure to take care of that. And then also, of course, think about in your bedrooms, you know, how you're going to use those spaces. Like if you're planning on mounting TVs on the walls, then you want plugs at, you know, 5 feet so that you have power, so you don't have to have cords hanging down. So, you know, kind of just think through the functionality of how you're going to use your home. And you can always, like, having plugs is never a bad thing. And usually just the normal plugs are relatively cheap with the builder. You can always do those again after the fact. A good electrician can come in and do it. But if the builder is willing to give you more of them, I would consider doing that. So that's kind of my like high voltage stuff to consider. Now let's move into talking about lighting. So lighting is super important, and I always tell people it's the more lighting you can have, it's kind of like plugs. The more you can have, the better. So this is where you start thinking through, again, if we work our way from the outside, do you want to have, you know, up light or down light on your house? So, you know, you want the lights on the bottom of the home shooting upward to give it a nice curb appeal at night. Also makes it safer. Do you want the lights in the gables, corbels, whatever we call those, like that, to where it looks really fancy? Are you thinking about doing the like LED rope so you get all the color changing and it's the year-long Christmas lights? Doesn't matter. Just make sure you have a plan to kind of think through that. Most builders these days, as we work our way inside, most builders in all of your secondary rooms are going to block and wire for ceiling fans. If they don't, ask them to do so. Block wire to make sure it's reinforced that it'll hold something with a little bit more weight. You know, a heavier fan or a heavier chandelier should be in all of your. Personally, I think it should be in all of your bedrooms. I think it should be in every room. I think every room should have a fan, most every room, because it's Texas and it's hot, and we have fans in every single room. So having the ability to put those fans in that place. So like I said, most builders are doing that standard. Don't necessarily buy the fan kit from them, because it's going to be ugly and they're going to overcharge you. But if you make sure the wiring is in place, that's always a good deal. A lot of times, the other things we talk about in lighting is adding in like additional LED, like those like can/disc lights. Because again, in the places we like to do those is we think, you know, living room, think study, game room or media room, any of those, and then honestly like master bedroom. Those are really nice to have. Like I said, it just adds more lighting options into the room. You can add them on a dimmer, and it just gives you the option to give a well-lit room, and it gives it a nice feel. We'd definitely do that. The next one would be thinking through your kitchen. So don't necessarily buy the pendants themselves from the builder, but do make sure that you have lighting, like wiring over your island so that you can hang pendant lights, right? They'll take it and they'll spool it up, and they'll blank plate it, and it'll sit up in the top of the ceiling. So you can go get your lights wherever you want to get them, but it's easier if you have all of that wiring already there. Same thing as we're staying in the kitchen. Under cabinet lighting, this one honestly for me is a 50-50. I know there's so many ways to do this now on Amazon, where you can come back and get like the LED light strips that are on the remote, or, you know, that are battery powered or whatever. I think that's an option. I will say if you do that, make sure you put the plugs in accordingly so that you can get inside your cabinet and hide those wires and things like that. But I would just consider honestly adding the lighting with the builder, like doing it from the under cabinet from the jump. I think it looks a little bit nice. It looks a little more elegant, and it's usually not super expensive. As we move into the master bedroom, I mentioned, like I said, adding the 4 to 6 can lights in your master, depending on how how big that room is. You might also consider adding lighting on the walls for like a sconce lighting if you want that in against your bed to give you that extra options. A lot of people too were adding them in bathrooms, especially if you go into your, like if you're looking at the plan and it's a tub kit there, you want a light above that tub, because if you hang a shower curtain, it's going to probably get really dark in that space. So if you don't already have one in there, I would say make sure you ask about adding one into that space. All right, so we did the lighting, we did electrical. Let's talk a little bit about low voltage. And so low voltage, in my opinion, this is the stuff like your Cat 5, Cat 6 cabling, speaker wire, security wire, things like that. So a couple things. So again, think through the like internet, for example, like if you're gonna be in your study and you want to make sure, what do you want hardwired into your home, right? Do you want your printers hardwired in? Do you want your computers hardwired in? If you're, streaming and you're not paying for cable anymore, do you want to depend on your Wi-Fi to run your streaming? If you're gaming, of course, do you want your Wi-Fi to depend on that? Or do you want to make sure that you have networked Ethernet ports at all of those TV locations so that you can hardwire everything in and not be so dependent on your Wi-Fi? I would lean that direction, but it does get a little bit pricey. So I just say, think through how you're using those spaces, and I would make sure you probably want to have at least one Ethernet port in every single room, and you can't go wrong with having more and it being run, Smurf tubing throughout the house and connected to a certain point, right? A lot of the time now, these builders are using, it's a white like junction box is not the right word. I'm called a junction box. I don't know what it's called, but it usually ends, it's like the home run. So it's where all of your cable comes in. It's where all of your internet, all of these things, and they terminate in this one space. And it's usually going to be in your master closet, or it's going to be in your laundry room. So if you don't want it in those spaces and you want to move it, you're like, hey, we want this to be in the study, or we want it to be in this room's particular closet. Make sure you ask about that if you have a plan. If you want security cameras, so a lot of people now are switching to the PoE, the power over Ethernet cameras. So if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that you have that cabling, popping out, on the corners or at the front door, on the back patio, wherever you're planning on going with that. Take a moment and think through how you want your house to function. You want it to live. Even if you don't do all the equipment right away, it's better to have the infrastructure to go back and do it later. So surround sound, you can go crazy on surround sound, stereo speaker sound, and have it, you can do 7.1, 5.1. I always think like, hey, media room, game room, wouldn't be a bad idea to have it. Of course, there's tons of options with sound bars and subwoofers and all of those different things you can do aftermarket, but it'd be pretty cool to have it. Like, I think the idea of having a whole home audio system where it's like, hey, we have the game room sound, and then we have, built-in speakers in the kitchen, and we have them in the living room, and we have them in the master bathroom for when you're getting ready in the morning and you just need to get hyped and you're like, yes, I'm ready. So I'm not a morning person. So when I get up in the morning, I need something that's like, just let me go in. Last one on this is similar. So ask about like cable management. So if you can run like the orange like Smurf tubing in the wall. So like if you have a TV on the wall and you have a console at the bottom, you can have it where it just drops down. You can have it like you think about it, you can do it. And what's really good is most of the time these builders have the people that are the experts in this space that can help ask you the right questions. It's kind of like if you give a mouse a cookie, right? If you give a mouse a cookie, he wants a glass of milk. And if he wants a glass of milk, he's going to want to take a nap and whatever. They'll ask the right questions to help get you into the right frame of mind to kind of think through where you're putting what and how you're planning on doing stuff like that. So we did all those things. One additional consideration I would give you, because I recently had a client do it, and I didn't ever actually think about it, but it's actually really cool. They did central vacuum lines throughout the whole home. So they had the builder put in all of the vacuum lines. They're going to buy their vacuum system aftermarket, but in all of the rooms, there's a little plate and it pulls out. It's got a hose, and I thought it was cool. So I thought I would mention it. But there's a couple things I would say probably don't do with the builder, because I think they're easier to do aftermarket when you close. I mentioned one earlier. It's the lighting fixtures. Please just let them put the wiring in place, but come back after and do your fixtures the way you want to do them. Second one would be security systems. Sometimes their systems are good. I would just say there's so much available on the market, get the wiring in place, and then kind of figure out the system that you want after the fact. My third one is like dimmers and smart switches and anything that creates home automation, right? Most builders have like what they call their smart home package, and that gives you, usually it's a doorbell, it's a one dimmer switch of some sort, usually, depends, and then like a motion sensor, and it's like the base level package, and then they're going to come out and they're going to try to upsell you. You don't necessarily need to do that. Like I said, do your research. There's tons and tons of options now for if you want to build a smart home system, which is one of those things that like I've kind of gotten really into. The rabbit hole goes really, really deep. And so if you want to build it, there are options, and I think you can do it cheaper and more efficiently. After closing, just make sure all of the wiring is in place to do the things you want to do. And then you can go in and swap those things out once the home is yours. And then same thing on the audio, have them run the wiring to get that system in place, but look at doing something third party with your own like speaker setups to get you squared away. I know that was a lot. Hopefully you're catching this before you ever actually see or you get into an electrical meeting, you're thinking about building. I hope you catch this. If you didn't and you missed it, I'm so sorry. If you need help, again, would love to help. It's what we do. It's our pleasure, and one of our favorite things about working through these different things. There's a lot of good things about building. Some people are like, I don't really like it. Me, personally, I like it. I think you should build a home, and it's a great opportunity.